Hello and welcome to Tabletop 24, and thank you for joining us for another unboxing. Today we have Tiny Epic Dungeons and Tiny Epic Dungeons Stories from Gamelyn Games. This was lent to us by a friend of the channel, so we're very grateful to have that and present it out to everybody. So this is, again, in the Tiny Epic series, big box in a small game, as they sort of say, and another one in the line, and this one is a dungeon crawl of sorts. So we're going to get straight into the base game to start with. This is the deluxe edition from the Kickstarter, so I believe there are a few extras in here than you would see at retail, as with all of the Tiny Epics. So we'll get straight in there. Again, some nice artwork from Gamelyn. A rulebook. Now, I have played this, and what I will say is the rulebook I did find it a bit challenging. Not going to lie, so make sure you do give that a full read and try and get the best out of it as you can. But I do think it was a bit of a challenge to get through. But hey ho. So then we've got the mini expansion, potions and perils, with some additional monsters and additional bosses, and some additional loot. So I won't go into that too detail. Let everybody get that when they can. We'll go for the base game here. So we have some very nice miniatures, and these are quite small. Again, I believe these might well have been the Kickstarter specific, but I could be wrong. I don't know if you're going to get a good view up there. You can see them. These are really nice, quite detailed miniatures. So there's quite a few of them. I think there's probably about 8 in total for characters, and they're quite nice to be such a small box and little miniatures. Probably getting paint on them might be a little bit of a challenge, but yeah, we'll give it a go. Now, in here is a lot of different small items, mainly the minions that you'll be facing as you go through the dungeons. Now, this is one of the spiders and one of the serpents, if we can get them up there. And these represent obviously the big minions that you'll be fighting, and the goblins, which there are 4 of, that you'll be tracking around as you go through the game. So then you've got some other nice wooden pieces that relate to different markers in the game for everybody, and heart markers for your own health. These are really nice screen printed, and they're nice to be a bit different. Not everything has to be plastic these days, and it is nice to see that. And obviously, being reusing the goblins, it's good to see how they work. And then we have some engraved dice. We have the counter-attack dice, and then your attack dice, which will give you sort of skill check and also attack. And then some benefits on there, whether you've got extra health or gain extra energy for future use. So that's quite nice. They are good quality dice, and again, being on a little bit of a smaller side, just fitting in that box, but they work really well. So we mentioned the goblins already and some of the minions, but let's take a look in here. So we have Stabby Goblin, Boomy Goblin, Pokey Goblin, and Shooty Goblin. These are the different types of goblins you will encounter as you go through the dungeon, and essentially you'll have a movement, a damage, a sort of a shield, so you'll have to roll and beat the skill check for damaging them. Then we have an abundance of items which will improve different stats for you, and also give you different types of attack, and sort of, which are quite nice as you go through. Killing the minions, killing the goblins gives you benefits of that. Then we have the minions. So these were the wooden pieces that we've seen earlier. These are stronger enemies that you'll face. You'll need to beat a certain number of them in order to trigger the boss. Again, the artwork on this is really nice, and then having the wooden pieces that go with them was also quite nice there. Then we've got the dungeon itself, starting with the boss's lair, so getting through and getting into that, and normal spaces as you'll go through. Some of them have got traps in, some of them have got loot, some of them have got goblins, so anything you'd normally find in a dungeon as you'll go through it there, which is really nice. And then the portals where you'll be summoning the minions in that you'll have to beat as you go through, lining up certain exits so that you're creating the actual dungeon map as you go around. Then we have spells. Now, alternate to items, these will give your characters sort of an ability to do a bit extra. You'll be picking these up again, learning them as you go through the dungeon, and then just the entrance tile that everybody starts on. That's it for the smaller cards. On to the larger ones. Now, we have and these are the bosses. So, we'll open that. We've got the dragon, the Hydra, the Goblin King, the Pharaoh, the Gorgon, and the Seer. Now, we faced off against the dragon in my first game. We did get through and we did beat it, but these bosses will have health tracks equal to the number of players, so that's quite a bit of a challenge you're going to have to do to get through that, and they are going to be doing some big damage to everybody as they come back, and all of these are slightly different, giving that bit of variety. So again, coming back to that point of quite a bit of game in a small place. So we've got our characters. On the back of every character is a player guide, so you'll be giving 4 of these out, and then obviously keeping potentially 4 to one side as player aids. We've got the Barbarian, the Elf Sorceress, Dwarf Cleric, Elf Ranger, Wood Elf Rogue, the Human Paladin, the Ancient Wizard, and the Dwarf Fighter. All slightly different stats, all slightly different abilities, to give you that bit of variety and a bit more of a challenge, all with different sort of attacks and sort of standard equipment that you'll then bulk out through the extra items that you can get from the loot as you go through. And then we've got a dungeon track and boss track, which essentially will be marking how much through the dungeon you've got and how much time you've got left in the dungeon, because it is a finite amount of turns. You can do a little bit to manipulate that, but there's mostly a finite number in there. Okay, so that was everything in the base game. I'm just going to pop that to one side, and then we're going to bring in Tiny Epic Dungeons Stories. So this is the expansion. That's part of the Kickstarter. I believe it was also in retail. I believe he's going to add more of sort of a quest type. Nice map of the area and the adventurous storybook. So showing us the components. Again, I've not read the rulebook for this one, but it looks like it's very similar, so may have its similar challenges. I found the original rulebook, you bounced around quite a bit trying to find out specific things, and there's like a rule that in relation to how the boss moves, and it was right at the end of the boss paragraph, but it was actually relevant at the very beginning, so it's handy to read through everything there. Then we have some more screen printed wooden pieces for minions and campaign bosses, so it's quite nice there, and even more characters. So I'm going to get some of these out again. We'll just drag a couple. It'll look interesting. So see if you can be able to see these. We've got a nice bear looking thing there. Let's see if I can get that up. Let's try that. There we go, a nice bear looking thing. Bard, which I think was missing from the first one. Ooh. It's possibly a ranger of type, and more like a cowboy or cowgirl, I should say, cow person. So some extra heroes, which should be quite nice for the campaign. Again, adding a lot of variety in quite a small box. Then we've got some extra goblins, some extra loot. I'm not going to linger on these too much in case there are spoilers in there, so you are warned. The minions that we've seen, extra doors and dungeon rooms, and then we have got, I believe these are going to be the missions that will be taken on throughout the campaign. So nice few extra bits to get through there. And these should be our character cards. The Tinkerer, the Mind Lasher, Elf Warlock. Oh, sorry, the first two. So the Tinkerer and the Mind Lasher were bosses. The Elf Warlock, the Human Psionic, the Pandakin Brewmaster, human adventurer. That was adventurer, apologies. I said cow person. So the Guardian of the Order, Sir Gamelyn. So anybody that's familiar with Gamelyn Games, that is their logo, which is quite awesome. It's made its way into this bit. Druid, a halfling bard, and a human monk. So rounding out a lot of those sort of standard fantasy tropes with all the different characters. So that sort of brings us to the end of our unboxing. So thank you for joining us for this, which was Tiny Epic Dungeons and the Stories expansion. If you haven't done so already, please check out our other videos on the channel, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.